Tom Cruise never talks about Nicole Kidman. Not once. Not in interviews, not in memoirs, not even in passing. For 24 years, silence has been his weapon, a deliberate cold erasure of a decade of love, marriage, and children. But now as Nicole files for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years, the ghosts of the past are back and they are louder than ever. What really happened behind closed doors? Why did two of Hollywood's biggest men vanish from her life without a single word? And what does that silence reveal about Nicole Kidman, the woman who endured it all and survived? Stay tuned, because this story isn't just about heartbreak, it's about erasure, control, and the quiet rebellion of a woman who refused to disappear. Tom Cruise has never mentioned Nicole Kidman. Not in interviews, not in stories, not even in passing. It's almost as if she never existed. Yet a single joke Nicole made over 2 decades ago can wear heels now has returned to haunt him, revealing a truth he's tried to bury for years. Now with Nicole Kidman officially filing for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage, Tom Cruise's silence feels louder than any statement could ever be. That deliberate, calculated quiet speaks volumes. When a man like Tom stays silent, it's never random, it's intentional. It's a message: you're no longer part of my story. As fans witness Nicole and Keith's split, the echoes of the past are impossible to ignore. 2 decades apart, yet the patterns feel eerily familiar. Heartbreak, irreconcilable differences, and the silence that follows. But this time the silence isn't just from Keith, it's from Tom, the man who once held Nicole's world in his hands before disappearing without a trace. 24 years of quiet. No acknowledgement. No public word. Just emptiness. Then suddenly a clip resurfaced, an interview from 2001 where Nicole sits across from David Letterman. The host compliments her. "You look fantastic. I heard about your divorce. How's it going?" Nicole smiles politely, laughs lightly, and delivers a line that's deceptively simple. "I can wear heels now," she says. The audience laughs. She lifts her shoe playfully, but her eyes tell a different story, a story of a woman transforming pain into strength. That tiny, seemingly innocent sentence became a symbol of her freedom after Tom. It wasn't about fashion. It wasn't about height. It was about reclaiming her life step by step. It was about a woman reclaiming the space she had surrendered for someone else. Nicole Kidman stands at 5 feet 11 inches, Tom Cruise at 5 feet 7, but this joke wasn't about height. It was about reclaiming power. For a decade, she had quietly compressed herself emotionally, spiritually. Public light makes someone else feel comfortable. That was the part the world completely missed. They laughed at the line. Magazines quoted it. But no one asked what it truly meant for a woman to finally stand tall again, to assert herself after years of self-effacement. Now, more than 20 years later, that same clip has resurfaced, going viral once again as history seems to echo. Nicole is ending another long marriage. Once more, she's confronted with the same language and divorce filings, irreconcilable differences. And once again, the man at the center of her life has gone utterly silent. Different man, same void. Back in 2001, when Tom filed for divorce, Nicole was blindsided. One day she was envisioning a shared future. The next, she was reading headlines that shattered her world. Since that day, Tom Cruise has maintained what can only be described as a surgical, deliberate silence. Not in interviews, not in memoirs, not in casual reflection, shallow acknowledgement. In 24 years, the only public words he's ever offered about Nicole came in a 2025 interview, a fleeting comment about casting her in Eyes Wide Shut. "She's a great actress." That's it, he said. 3 words. After 10 years together, 2 adopted children, an entire life intertwined, that was the sum total of his public recognition. And that silence? It isn't neutral. It isn't passive. It's deliberate. In the hands of someone as calculated as Tom Cruise, silence becomes a weapon. It erases history, rewriting a story so the other person vanishes entirely. Nicole's presence quietly disappeared from his narrative, from interviews, retrospectives, red carpets. Their decade together seemed to the outside world as if it had never existed. And perhaps that's what makes this cycle so chilling. It's happening all over again. When Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman's marriage began to fracture in 2025, the same pattern emerged. He too went silent. Long before the divorce papers hit the court, he had already emotionally checked out. Sources revealed Keith quietly signed the custody agreement months before the public even sensed trouble. Efficient, discreet, meticulous. Nicole would retain the majority of parenting time with their daughters, and then Keith returned to tour life as if nothing had shifted. No posts, no statements, no interviews, only silence. Two men, 2 decades apart. Both chose to abandon her in quietude. In early interviews after her first divorce, Nicole never sounded bitter. She sounded adrift. In 2002, she told Vanity Fair, "I was willing to give up everything. I was reeling with Tom and I loved it. I would have walked to the end of the earth." Her love had swallowed her whole, and heartbreakingly, she didn't even realize it until it was too late. By 2006, 5 years after the split, she reflected on the shock of it all, yet still admitted, "He was lovely to me and I loved him. I still love him." Even after years of silence, her heart remained tethered. Meanwhile, Tom said nothing. He carried on as if their 10 years together had vanished. Look closer and a disturbing pattern emerges. Tom's divorce in 2001 cited irreconcilable differences. Keith's divorce in 2025, same phrase. Tom's reason, divergent careers. Keith's reason, lives moving in different directions. In both instances, Nicole fought to salvage what was already gone. She tried to hold on to men who had emotionally already walked away. It's like watching the same film replayed 20 years apart. Only now the ending feels even colder. And that is what makes this repetition so haunting. Tom's silence wasn't merely heartbreak, it was power. When someone erases you publicly, they strip away your influence, your presence, your story. For Nicole, it meant vanishing from his narrative, entirely written out as if she had never existed. No mentions, no shared memories, no acknowledgement that she ever mattered. That's exactly what Nicole is facing again now with Keith. He hasn't spoken a single word. No defense, no explanation, no closure, just disappearance. And that kind of silence can cut deeper than anger or betrayal. Because anger still shows you cared. Silence? Silence means you might as well not exist. So when people ask why won't Tom ever talk about Nicole, the answer is far more complex than it seems. There are theories. Some claim it's Scientology. Nicole was allegedly labeled a suppressive person, making it forbidden for Tom to acknowledge her. Others point to legal reasons, confidentiality clauses in their divorce keeping both of them silent. But the darkest truth might also be the simplest. Tom doesn't see Nicole as part of his story anymore. He has rewritten his life, erasing her completely. That ability to remove an entire decade to act as if it never happened reveals something chilling about how Tom processes love, loss, and control. When Tom Cruise is done with someone, you don't just leave his present, you vanish from his past. That's not heartbreak. That's erasure. And maybe that's exactly what Nicole has been trying to reclaim all along. When she joked, "I can wear heels," now she wasn't talking about shoes. She was claiming back her space, her identity, her visibility. She was finally standing tall again after 10 years of shrinking herself for a man who preferred her smaller. Now, decades later, the same pattern repeats, and the world is beginning to understand. This isn't coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's a painful learned cycle of loving men who vanish without a trace. And that silence? That's the loudest sound of all. In Hollywood, silence is supposed to be peaceful, but it can be a weapon. For Nicole Kidman, silence has never meant peace. It has meant absence. It has meant watching the men she once loved disappear without explanation, leaving her to carry the weight of stories they refused to tell. When Tom Cruise walked away in 2001, he didn't just leave a marriage, he disappeared from her story overnight. And for the next 24 years, the absence remained. No recognition, no memory, no shared reflection. A decade of marriage, 2 adopted children, and a life together raised as if it had been a chapter he simply cut out of his autobiography. But the truth behind Tom's silence is darker than it appears. This absence wasn't random. It was deliberate, controlled, strategic, a pattern that has haunted Nicole throughout her life. After the divorce, Nicole sought understanding. She did what she always does, turned pain into performance. In the early 2000s, she immersed herself in work, Moulin Rouge, The Hours, The Others. Films that in different ways explored women trapped in silence. When she won the Oscar for The Hours in 2003, the world assumed she had found healing. But look closer, the trembling hands, the quiet voice, the fleeting terthus wasn't triumph. It was survival. The Hours wasn't just about Virginia Woolf, it was about women quietly drowning behind flawless smiles. And that was Nicole drowning, smiling, performing, surviving. Behind the scenes, Tom's silence extended beyond the personal. It was institutional. The Church of Scientology had labeled Nicole a suppressive person, SP, a term used for anyone who questions or challenges the church's authority. Reports claim that after the divorce their adopted children, Isabella and Connor, were told their mother was a threat to their faith. Nicole, who had once believed in marrying for love and protection, now found herself effectively cut off from a part of her own family, not by choice but by silence. In Scientology, silence is more than absence. It enforces obedience. It severs communication. It erases. Tom didn't need public statements. His silence did it all. Through that quiet, Nicole was slowly erased from her children's lives, from his public persona, from the narrative of their shared history. That's the cruelty of erasure. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't roar. It creeps in quietly, invisibly, until the world forgets you were ever part of the picture. When Nicole began to rebuild her life, she was determined not to repeat the past. In 2002, she told Vanity Fair, "I was willing to give up everything." A confession that lingered for years, the idea that love could demand her complete surrender. So when she met Keith Urban in 2005, she believed she was starting a new chapter, quieter, safer. They married in 2006, and for nearly 20 years, it seemed she had found her peace. 2 daughters, Sunday and Faith. Country music awards. Family trips. Red carpet smiles. But Hollywood love stories rarely end softly. By 2025, the cracks began to show again. Sources close to the couple revealed that Keith was constantly on tour, rarely home. Nicole was filming overseas. Their schedules no longer aligned. Their lives were moving apart. Sound familiar? The same phrasing appeared in her divorce from Tom, and here's the detail most missed. Keith had signed the custody agreement 2 months before the public even knew a divorce was coming. Nicole filed in September. Keith had already moved out in July. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, he had already left. And again, he stayed silent. No interviews. No explanations. No statements. Just the same cold, quiet pattern Tom had perfected decades earlier. The blueprint of silence repeated almost perfectly. So why does Nicole Kidman find herself drawn to men who vanish so completely? Coincidence or something deeper? Psychologists call it repetition compulsion, the subconscious drive to repeat familiar, emotional patterns, even painful ones, in hopes of rewriting the ending. Perhaps Nicole has spent her life trying to heal that original wound, believing that this time love would not disappear in silence. But each time, first Tom, then Keith, 2 men who showed love publicly but withdrew privately. 2 men who smiled for the cameras, then vanished when the lights went off. And in both stories, Nicole's instinct was the same: to fight, to hold on, to understand, to fix. But silence offers no answers. Only deeper, haunting questions. There's something haunting about how Nicole reflects on her first marriage even decades later. In 2015, she told Harper's Bazaar, "It took me a very long time to heal. It was a shock to my system." That word shock echoes again and again. Silence doesn't just wound. It disorients. It leaves you questioning reality. How can someone share your home, your children, your secrets, and then vanish as if you never existed? When Tom left, Nicole said, "I thought our life together was perfect." When Keith left, friends said she was fighting to save it. Same woman. Same confusion. 2 decades apart. And the deeper pain isn't simply about being abandoned, it's about not being seen. Because at least when someone argues, they acknowledge your existence. Silence makes you invisible. Nicole has often said she married Tom for love, but she's also admitted she married for protection. She was 23 when they met, young, ambitious, still learning to navigate Hollywood. Tom was 28, already one of the most influential men in the industry. At the time, Nicole believed being with him meant safety. She later explained, "Being married to an extremely powerful man kept me from being sexually harassed. I married for love, but I also felt protected." Those words spoken years later reveal a heartbreaking truth. Protection isn't always love. When love is built on control, it's possession. And when the protector leaves, all that remains is emptiness. Tom's silence was more than distance, it was punishment. A quiet, unspoken message: "You're not worth my acknowledgement." And it worked. For years, Nicole avoided speaking about him, not out of anger but exhaustion. Because when someone refuses to see you, the effort to be seen becomes unbearable. 2 decades later, she faces the same quiet storm. The same headlines. The same phrases. The same lonely silence from a man she once trusted, and the same world analyzing her pain without truly understanding it. Nicole Kidman's ordeal isn't just heartbreak, it's emotional invisibility. The kind that comes when partners can erase you while standing right beside you. Tom's silence became almost legendary in mythic stoicism. Keith's silence is quieter, subtler, but equally chilling. A slow fade instead of a sharp cut. Yet for Nicole, the effect is identical. Both men loved her in public. Both withdrew in private. Both left her to carry the story alone. That's the cruelty of Hollywood silence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't erupt. It's precise, controlled, camera ready. It allows the men to leave looking composed while the women are left to explain what went wrong. And yet through it all, Nicole has never spoken with bitterness. Even now, as the world speculates about her second heartbreak, she remains composed, dignified, private. Perhaps she's learned that silence cannot be answered with noise. Perhaps the only way to reclaim it is through art. Nicole doesn't just speak her pain, she performs it. She transforms heartbreak into characters that whisper, that ache, that survive. Every time she steps on screen, she tells the world, I'm still here. I still exist. Maybe that is her quiet rebellion. Because if Tom Cruise chose to erase her and Keith Urban chose to ignore her, Nicole Kidman chose something stronger: endurance. To keep showing up. To keep expressing even when others remain silent. To keep wearing heels not as a joke but as an act of defiance. Tom's silence will likely remain an eternal part of his untouchable mythology. Keith's silence might fade with time, but the impact has already left its mark. Once again, Nicole stands amid the ruins of love that ended quietly, but she's not the same woman she was in 2001. She knows what silence truly means. She knows it isn't peace, it's absence. And she has learned that the only voice capable of breaking it is her own. So perhaps the real story isn't Tom's silence nor Keith's, it's Nicole's ability to live loudly despite it.